The 63rd plenary meeting of the General Assembly is called to order. I would like, in keeping with established practice, to invite the attention of the General Assembly to document A/78/707, Addendum 2, in which the Secretary General informs the President of the General Assembly that since the issuance of his communication contained in document A/78/707, Addendum 1, Liberia has made the payments necessary to reduce the arrears below the amount specified in Article 19 of the Charter. May I take it that the General Assembly takes note of the information contained in this document? It is so decided. The General Assembly will resume its consideration of Agenda Item 69, entitled Elimination of Racism, Racial Discrimination, Xenophobia, and Related Intolerance, to commemorate the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination in accordance with Resolution 78/234 of the 22nd December 2023. The President will deliver a statement from the rostrum. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, today we gather once again, as we do annually, to mark the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. This is the opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to combat and to eliminate racial discrimination in all its forms and manifestations, and to stand up alongside those who continue to fight racism and racial discrimination. We must use this as a moment to amplify the voices of anti-racism activists, such as Zulaikha Patel from South Africa, who stood up against racism in her high school and hopes to empower young girls by her activism. And Ayo Tometi, a human rights activist who follows in the footsteps of leaders such as Martin Luther King and uses her advocacy to ensure that race, immigration, and gender justice remain at the forefront of global conversations. Yet, millions across the world still endure various forms of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance, which continue to manifest in new and increasingly perverse ways. I therefore open today's commemoration with a singular message. Racism and racial discrimination is a flagrant violation of human rights, dignity, and the equality inherent in all human beings. It is morally wrong, has no place in our world, and must therefore be roundly repudiated. Excellencies, the timely and highly pertinent theme guiding this year's observance is a decade of recognition, justice, and Development, implementation of the International Decade for People of African Descent, a theme close to my own heart. The launch of the International Decade for People of African Descent, 2015 to 2024, was a landmark decision of the General Assembly. It called for the United Nations, member states, civil society, and all other relevant actors to work together with people of African descent under the theme Recognition, Justice, and Development. It led to the adoption of several measures at national levels in multiple countries, including the adoption of national action plans against racism and recognition of the rights of people of African descent in national constitutions, as well as respect for the diverse heritage, culture, and contribution of people of African descent in the development of societies and civilization. As we conclude the International Decade this year, we must frankly reflect on the lessons we have learned and candidly assess if we have achieved all our goals. Excellencies, regrettably, today's reality is heavily influenced by the legacies of past atrocities and crimes. These include colonialism, the slave trade, and slavery itself. These legacies continue to be acutely felt by people of African descent and invariably manifest themselves in the form of systemic racism in many countries around the world. People of African descent face many injustices as a result, evidenced by disproportionately high levels of poverty and hardship, higher levels of unemployment, a heightened vulnerability to police brutality, and a lack of access to education, health care, and social protection. And it is often women of African descent who bear the heaviest burden, as they are confronted by the twin reinforcing evils of gender-based and racial discrimination. Therefore, as the international community honors past victims of racial prejudice and injustice, we must intensify our efforts to dismantle entrenched systems that perpetuate the injustices. Next Monday, we will commemorate the International Day of Remembrance of the victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. With a view to generating actionable outcomes, on this occasion, I will convene a morning GAIAP dialogue focusing on the issue of reparatory justice. Dear friends, let us recall that the full realization and respect for human rights of all individuals, without distinction of any kind, is crucial to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and leaving no one behind. It is thus essential that we strengthen international cooperation and understanding to ensure the full enjoyment of human rights by all, and redouble our efforts, our collective efforts, to eliminate all forms of racial discrimination. Concurrently, we must adopt and reinforce national, regional, and international legal frameworks in accordance with the International Convention on the Elimination of all Forms of Racial Discrimination, ensuring its full and effective implementation. Excellencies, let me close by urging us all that as the International Decade draws to a close, let us effectively leverage the few remaining months we have. While we contemplate our achievements and shortcomings, let us redouble our resolve to do all that we can to address persistent forms of discrimination. Let us dismantle the structures and the paradigms perpetuating modern-day racism and racial discrimination. Let us usher in a world where racial equality and equal justice prevail. I thank you.